Yeah, yeah. Um, good day. This is om'tayo Samuel, and of course, I'll be talking about creativity within the classroom from the artist perspective, that is, from the artist teacher perspective. I'm not going to talk like, okay, I am an artist and all of that, so I should talk about creativity and make it look, you know, like simple and cannot be done by any other person. No, I'm just going to talk and relate this to the fact that anybody can be an artist. So, and of course, relating to education, relating to the classroom situation. So, once again, my name is om'tayo Samuel, and my Twitter handle, my Twitter point is Twitter dot Twitter at Solomon. That's SSOLOMOON. And of course, I have my Facebook page as well. Everything is right there on the screen, of course. That is Olumide om'tayo Samuel. That's my Facebook account. And of course, I have my Instagram handle as well. That is at Kraal, at_Kraal. And of course, my email is olumide.om'tayo.samuel@gmail.com. So my mobile number is 090 and of course you have to put in the Nigerian code there. That's 234 before making the call. So, and of course, our Facebook page is there. Always subscribe to get more of what we have to give out. Thank you so much. So, once again, I'm going to be teaching today about creativity within the classroom. Creativity within the classroom. That is turning our teacher into that artist that produce materials for to better the classroom situation, and of course to improve the learning process, and of course to improve everything about the students or the learners getting more from the class. So I'm going to start with the heading. Of course, you can see on the screen the different areas, of course, the objective where I'm going to cover in this very short lecture. You can see what is a classroom. We are going to really know, okay, what exactly is a classroom? What is creativity when it has to do with a classroom situation or learning situation, and why is it necessary? And what type of classroom do we really have? How do you define creativity in a classroom, and how exactly do you become creative in a classroom? And of course, I'll be speaking very, very briefly on the kind of questions that are expected to be asked, that is meant to improve you as a teacher, and of course as a teacher artist. So now let's start with the first heading, which is of course, what exactly is the classroom? What is a classroom? What is a classroom? Now, a classroom is any learning space which by all standards should be conducive. That is, a classroom is any learning space which by all standards should be conducive, which means a classroom must be anywhere that learning can take place. Anywhere learning can what? Take place. And by all standard, if you're talking about what are the expectations for probably a nursery school classroom, there are standards for it. If you are talking about a high school or secondary school classroom, there are standards for it. And if we're talking about the college, university, and all of that classroom, there are standards for it. If you're talking about the primary school classroom, there are standards for it. So that will say that by all standards revolving around that particular class, and of course, more importantly, must be conducive. So there's no learning without conduciveness. So that is why. So that's why I say a classroom is any learning is any learning space which by all standards should be conducive. So that is that about that. So now, what is creativity and why is it necessary? Now, in my own little way, honestly, defining creativity is it's really broad. It's really broad, but I'm going to just squeeze out the whole thing into something, into just one single sentence, and it's going to go like this: creativity is any ability to do things in unique and acceptable way. That's just my own little coinage from whatever extension of what is creativity is all about. So anybody can always get the idea, or kind of definition, or trying to explain creativity from different angle. But this one is just a kind of concise, a kind of a contraction of whatever we may have at the back of our minds there. That creativity is any ability, because creativity has to do with an ability. There must be something to show, to show for it. So creativity is any ability to do things, to do anything in unique. Because when you're talking about creativity, you're talking about taking something new, or something that's been there already, and rebranding it, changing it, and making it look more exciting in a different way. So that I say that it's an ability, or any ability to do things in unique. I say do things in unique. That uniqueness is the newness of that idea. Now you are trying to rebrand it to make it look different, to make it look more exciting. So I say unique. It's like creativity is any ability to do things in unique and acceptable way. Acceptable, which means within the framework of where the creativity is being performed or is being showcased, there must be an acceptable standard within that angle. So that's why I say that in an acceptable way. So creativity is any ability to do things in unique and acceptable way. There are acceptable standards. Initially I talked about standards for different classroom situations, and of course this also applies here. That whatever creativity we are applying in a primary school situation must be what is acceptable within the framework of that primary school classroom, not something that might be relatable to a college or university or whatever. So now, why is creativity necessary in a classroom? Why is creativity necessary in a classroom? Number one, creativity is necessary in any classroom situation so as to further boost a learning process. I think that is very, very key. And it should be at the forefront of whatever we are doing, because we are dealing with classroom students, and of course the classroom teacher or classroom director. So creativity is necessary in any classroom situation so as to further boost a learning process. Then number two, creativity is necessary in any classroom situation so as to make learning and teaching less boring. So as to make learning and teaching less boring. So it's very, very important. So also creativity is necessary in any classroom so as to pave ways to further research and bringing up more learning processes. So when there is creativity within the classroom space, there is room for more researches. There's room for more findings. So that's why I say that creativity pave way for further research, for more research. Another thing is that creativity, or should I say, that should be number 4, I think. So creativity is necessary in any classroom so as to make learning accessible to all, so as to make learning accessible to everyone, so as to make learning accessible. So in this case, you are putting into the bracket the people I'll call the slow learners, and of course the super learners, the fast learners, and all of that. You must put everything into everybody into consideration, and of course you must put also every situation surrounding. Yeah, that's very, very tasking, but it's very, very necessary as well. So you must put into the bracket the situation surrounding the individual learner, the individual student within your classroom situation. So you must put everything concerning them into consideration here. So because we have some students, wherever they're coming from, they've had some challenges at home. You must have an understanding that every one of them come from different homes. So that is that really about that. So number 5 now, I think creativity is necessary in any classroom so as to make the parties involved exercise their minds. Initially we talk about having bringing off further researches and all of that, making us to go further into researches and, of course, more ideas. But in this case now, it makes the parties involved, either the class teacher, the students, or whoever is involved within the classroom creativeness or whatever, to exercise their minds. Because the one thing about creativity is that the more you are creative, the more it requires of you to be more creative. So you don't settle for less. You don't settle for status quo. You don't settle for what has gone in the past. So that is that about that. So, and of course, number 6 here, and which I'm going to wrap up that part of this talk, is that creativity is necessary in the classroom because it helps in the construction of lesson aids or material or any instructional material within the classroom situation. It helps because when you are creative, it helps in developing the relevant instructional material for individual lessons, not just individual lesson alone, but for individual topics within the subject frame. So that is that about that. So now, another heading I'm going to talk about is, what are the things or items expected in a classroom? This is might be, of course, very, very simple and, of course, straightforward. So what are the things or items expected within a classroom? Number one, I'm going to be talking about, of course, the lesson aid or material, the instructional materials that you use for your lesson, passing across the information that they are very, very relevant. They are relevant, and of course they are important, and of course they must be something that will help out, like I said earlier on, the classroom teacher or director who is going to put into consideration the individual learners, and of course the dichotomy existing within them or their situations. So at the same way, whatever instructional material that is being channeled into the class, that is being used creatively within the class, must also address the individuality of each of the learners. So that is that about that. And of course, another thing to consider here, that is what are the things expected in a classroom. Number two here is conduciveness. That is the kind of conduciveness that thoroughly aid on alloyed attention. When we're talking about the class, the number one thing, we talk is attention. When you're having a teacher and learner, relationship coming together, to do their business, it's just simply attention. That is the next thing that is important in this case. So another thing needed in any classroom is unalloyed attention and conduciveness that embrace that. Number three is an unequivocal opportunity for openness and newness. Remember, we're talking about creativity, so newness is always key there. So, and of course, another thing is there must be that opportunity for openness. You must be open. The teacher must be open to the student, and the student or the learners must as well be open to the teacher. If you don't understand a particular thing, of course, you ask question. And now listen to me very, very carefully. We might be saying, okay, the student don't understand something. They are open to asking question from the class teacher or the class director. In the same way, if the class teacher don't understand something about a particular student, he has every right to ask question. And if peradventure the student may not be able to answer the question, of course, you can channel it to whoever is the guardian, the sponsorer, the parent, or whoever that is in charge of the student or the learner, and of course make your findings from that angle. So number four, another important thing that is necessary in a classroom is a high level of decency from all parties, from all participants, from all the people involved. There must be high level of decency. There must be decency. And of course, decency is just that singular thing that breed respect. So that is that about that. So number five here is no unnecessary interference whatsoever. There shouldn't be on any. Remember, we talked earlier on about attention, on alloyed attention. The same way, there mustn't be any kind of unnecessary interference either from outside or from even within the classroom. I don't want to be in a classroom where my teacher is teaching me, and of course, somewhere along the line, his phone is ringing, and of course, he's picking up the phone to answer the call. No, I'm not saying you can't just answer your call, but it shouldn't be something that become almost a routine, that becomes a kind of continuity, that becomes a kind of way of life, a kind of culture. It's not a culture that is expected or even acceptable within the classroom situation, whereby your phone continues to ring all the time and you're picking it to answer a call right there in the class. It's not there shouldn't just be that unnecessary interference. And of course, I'm going to wrap it up here with this, that the teacher and learner concern there must be cordial relationship between the two. There must be cordial relationship between the two. That is, of course, the teacher and the learner concern. And of course, even if you have, because in some classroom situations we have some like third party or all of that, maybe external teachers or even the parent in this case, and of course the school by extension. There must just be what you call cordial relationship between all of the parties involved. So that is that about that. So I'm going to go again into a little bit of another part of the heading, which is, of course, what are the few types of classroom we have or that exist. In this case, I'm going to be a little bit how should I put it? I'm going to be a little bit subjective here. I'm going to be subjective. I just coin out this, we're talking about really creativity. So I'm just trying like, okay, this is how this is what I've seen. This is how it is. You can give it your own definition, your own name. You can be very, very professional about it. I'm an artist. I'm just trying to do something nice, bring it up like, okay, this is how, as a teacher, you can really turn yourself into an artist, and of course use that gift in your class to aid your learning process or learning situation. So at the same time, I'm just going to tell you this in my own way, what I've been able to coin out, and of course you may want to give it any other professional tag you want. So we want to talk about a few type of classroom that we exit from. I mean, there are so many, but at least I've highlighted 4. So the first one is the authoritarian dictative class. Authoritarian dictative class. That is number 1. And of course, in authoritarian dictative class, you have the teacher being the supremo, being the authority, unquestionable authority, unquestioned authority. That is, he dish out the lesson, dish out how the students are expected to accept the lesson, to feel about the lesson. He dish out the assignment, the tasks and everything. No input whatsoever from the student. And even if there's going to be input, it's so minimal that you can barely say this is an input. So that is the kind of class on one part. That is the authoritarian dictative class. Then number 2, that's number 1 actually. Then number 2, individual explorative class. I call it individual explorative class. In this kind of class is more or less like what you call a class where the teacher will just dish out, this is the problem, this is what we want to deal with today, this is what we want to get answers to today. So each of you students go into your separate go to your separate inner circle or separate space and bring up solutions. You understand? Bring up solutions that we might now try to compare and contrast eventually. So it is more of the student. It's really, really individualistic. That means as a student or as students within that classroom space, you are just to yourself and you carry out your researches individually to yourself. So it's until when we now come back, we now try to like look at each of the results or each of the responses and probably try to do a kind of compare and contrast right there. And of course, we also go our separate ways. So there's little or nothing the teacher or the classroom director is doing other than to just give out this thing and be a kind of a judge when it comes to, it might not really be a judge, but someone who is a moderator, let me just put it like that, a kind of moderator in comparing and contrasting ideas. Then number 3 is the roundtable discourse class. The roundtable discourse class. In this case, everybody is more or less like a kind of the opposite of the individual explorative class. So in this one is about roundtable discourse class, whereby everybody comes together and we discuss. We have a problem, we have a situation, we put it forward, and everybody comes with the idea. We start talking, discussing. Why is this like this? Oh, I don't think it's like that. No. Why don't we take this side? We always talk and dish out ideas, try to compare and contrast right there on the table, and within that discourse we bring out our solution. There's nothing like comparing, contrasting, and try to bring up the best out of the rest. So that is about the roundtable discourse class. And finally, from what I've highlighted here, we are going to talk about the question answer research class situation. In this case, the class director, teacher, will just come up with a bunch of questions, and of course right there the student will provide answers to it and try to maybe answer more questions concerning the answers they've given to be sure probably this is the correct answer. The comparison that is done for the different responses is done on basically question and answer. So I have asked a question, okay, how do we do this? You're giving me an answer. Oh, I think this is how we should do it. And I begin to ask you a kind of uh, interrogative question here. That's okay. Why do you think we should do it that way? And you are giving me another answer that okay, this is the reason why you think we should do it that way. And if I have other question to you that okay, if we are not doing it that particular way you stated, what other way do you think we can do it, or should we do it? So it's more of question answer, answer, question answer. So, and even also the student can ask the teacher a question and the teacher provide answer. So it's basically more of question answer situation. So those are the 4 types of classrooms that I have been able to highlight it briefly right here.